Hey, hi everybody. I'm with 6262. Say hello.
Hello.
All right, and we are going to be doing lesson 5 of famous Mesopotamian historic figures. This figure is going to be unlike the other ones that we've covered. He is not an emperor or a conqueror like Sargon or Hammurabi or Ashurbanipal or Nebuchadnezzar. He's not a king of anything. In fact, the person we're going to be speaking about, Abraham, is a religious leader, a prophet. And we're going to talk about his establishment of the first monotheistic religion. And we're also going to talk about his establishment of the Hebrew culture and people, and how he is seen as, in many ways, a founder, a principal prophet, and origin figure for 3 different religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So, key terms that we're going to be talking about today include those 3 faiths, those 3 religions, which all can trace their origins to the prophet Abraham. That word prophet is going to be very important. Notice that this prophet is spelled with a P-H-E, not an F-I. So prophet with an F-I is like prophets, like I'm making money. With a P-H-E is like prophecies. A prophecy is a prediction of the future. And a prophet is somebody who people of one religion or another believe has the ability to see the future, communicate with the supreme being, perform miracles, so on and so forth. And that's going to be a real important term, not just for this figure, but for many different religious figures. The word covenant is going to be important as well. But I want to get to these 2 terms right here, which normally we would do a whole unit on comparative religions. I would have done that already, but I'm going to save that for the end of the year when hopefully we're all in school and we can do a great movie project with this. But since we didn't do the comparative religion unit, these 2 words are probably new to you, so I want to make sure they're familiar. When we see theism in a word, it means religious belief. Whenever we see T-H-E, as a prefix in a word, it means relating to of God or of religion. So, for example, theology is the study of religions. A theologian is somebody who studies religion. So, if we look at the the in each of these, and we look at the word before it, or the prefix before it, right? So poly means more than one, many, right? So if I have poly and then theism, belief of God, it means the belief of more than one God or supreme being. Multiple gods, polytheism. And we look at many of the religions of the ancient world. Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Greeks and Romans, the Norse, the Mayan, Aztec, they are polytheistic, meaning they believe in multiple deities, multiple gods who control the universe. Religions that have attributes of polytheism that exist today include Shinto and Hinduism. Monotheism, theism, belief of God, mono in front of it. Mono means one. So monotheism is the belief that there is one God, one supreme being. And if we look at these 3 religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all 3 of those originate in the area of Mesopotamia and have a root with this one person, Abraham. A shared history, shared root, shared belief system. So these 3 religions are all monotheistic. Other monotheistic religions in the world include Sikhism, belief in one supreme being. So it's important that you have an understanding of what the term monotheism and polytheism is. We could throw in this root theism, and put different beginnings in it. For example, if I put A in front of a word, it means not. So atheism means they don't believe in a God or any religious belief. If I put bi or dual theism, that means that they believe in 2 gods. Get the idea? Non-theism is a religion that doesn't is a religion but doesn't have a belief in one specific god, like Buddhism. So that just to kind of give you an idea, when we're studying religions, that term theism is important, and it's important as students of history that we get ideas of how we categorize religion because, well, religion makes up a huge portion of our study of history. So many different historic events, from governments to war to peace to charity to many different things, are shaped by religion. One of the most powerful human forces is the belief in different faiths. So as we study history, we also have to study the impact and belief systems of different religions. Now, before we get into studying this historic figure, I also want to give my quick note to all of you that when we're studying the history of religions, we're not necessarily studying historic fact. We're studying historic faith, right? And there's a real important difference between faith and fact. If something that I believe as fact is fact because of my faith is something that my religion teaches me, but I don't necessarily have solid proof of it, is something that I believe as a matter of faith. For example, belief in an afterlife. What happens after we die. That's a matter of faith. We don't have concrete factual proof of it. Whereas belief of fact, like, I believe that is daylight because I can look out the window, I can see the sunshine, I can see the sky. I have factual evidence of that. So matters of faith are things that you believe without necessarily having to hold the fact in your hand. And when we're talking about the history of beliefs, a lot of these are matters of faith. Do I have factual evidence of the prophet Abraham's conversations with a singular God? No. But these are the belief and the story and the belief, and this is part of religion, has shaped the religious beliefs of 3 different faiths around the world. Billions of people living on the planet right now, and billions of people throughout our history have been shaped by the belief of this story. Does that make sense? So by going and reviewing a religious story doesn't necessarily endorsing that it's fact or false. It's just that we need to know where people are coming from in their beliefs to kind of understand their backgrounds and understand their faith. And it's important that we as historians study and learn about every faith that we can. The more that we learn about every single faith, not just our own, the better we understand the world and the people around us, and the better that we can relate to them. So let's meet this figure, Abraham, who ties in and connects to 3 different religions, 3 different faiths. So if you look at the person in the picture, he, again, doesn't look like, the kings that we looked at before. He doesn't have a crown. He's not trying to show himself as powerful in this artist rendering of him.
He looks like a regular person.
A regular person. That's what he was, according to belief. He was a shepherd. Shepherds are people who herd sheep. Hence the name, Shep, herd, sheep herder. Yes, your camera should remain on. So he is a sheep herder, a shepherd. And in this artist rendering, he's looking up at the stars in the sky, the night sky. And this symbol of the stars in the sky is real important to religious beliefs in the story of Abraham. We'll get to that in a minute. So, if we look at him, one prophet of 3 different faiths, during this time period in Mesopotamia, yes, there are many different civilizations. The Sumerians, the Akkadians, the Babylonians, the Assyrians. Many different city-states. But not everybody living in the region of Mesopotamia necessarily lived in these cities. Remember, in prehistory, almost everybody was nomadic, right? And just because cities and civilizations are established doesn't mean that people stop being nomadic. There's still nomadic societies today. We can look in areas of the present day Middle East and Northern Africa, and find groups like the Bedouins who still live primarily nomadically. We can go into areas of Central Asia or the Amazon and find societies that still live nomadically. So Abraham lives in a nomadic tribe, a nomadic group called the Hebrews, and they are mostly shepherds. And Abraham naturally is a shepherd. And according to the belief, he was a good guy, lived a good life, and he was pretty old, right? He was an old man. And according to religious faith, according to religious belief, this old guy that never had any children of his own, that's like his one regret is like, oh, I wish I had descendants. I wish I had children. That word descendant might be familiar to a lot of you, since there was a Disney series, The Descendants, that was on for a couple years. There, a couple movies they made, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And what was the premise of The Descendants? Who were the main characters?
Mal, Evie.
Well, I know their name, not their names, but what were they?
They were evil.
Well, they were evil, but who were they connected to? They were descendants of evil people, of all the villains, all right? Of all the Disney villains. So you had, Maleficent's daughter, and you had, the son of Cruella de Vil, and all these other figures, right? So they're all the children of these villains. They're the descendants. So a descendant, if you're descended from somebody, it's your ancestors. My descendants would be my children. Eventually, maybe my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. You are the descendants of your parents, of your grandparents, of your great-great-great-great-grandparents. Make sense? So, in this idea that he wants to be able to have descendants, but he doesn't have any children. So, in the belief is he's contacted by this one supreme being, one God, in the Hebrew word Yahweh, and he's contacted by this God, and God says to him, "Look, I'm pretty upset. These people in Mesopotamia and around the world are believing in many different gods, but there's only one, me, and I want you to teach people that. And in exchange, if you teach people that there's only one God, then you'll have more descendants than there are stars in the sky." And that promise is called a covenant. A covenant is an agreement. It's like a contract. When we hear that word covenant, it's like, a sacred agreement. You often might hear the term a covenant of marriage. Two people pledge themselves to one another. It's a sacred agreement, right? So that idea that Abraham makes a covenant, a sacred agreement with God, is real important. And that idea of stars in the sky is a real important symbol that comes back. And if we think about it, that this one prophet, this one religious figure, that he is connected to and is seen as the start of a monotheistic religion that then sees the beginning of Judaism, the world's oldest monotheistic religion, Christianity, the world's most widely practiced religion, and Islam, the second most widely practiced religion in the world. Three different religions all trace their beginnings with this one figure. So the belief in this one figure and this idea of this covenant is real important. And the fact that pretty much anybody who considers themselves Jewish, Christian, or Muslim living today or throughout history can trace their belief heritage back to this one figure kind of makes them have a lot of descendants, right? All these people and their beliefs are descended from this one shared figure. And there's many different stories about Abraham within the Torah, the holy book of Judaism, also in the Old Testament and in beliefs and Islam. And there are many other important prophets that shaped the history of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam after Abraham. In particular, for the Hebrew people, prophets like Moses, who leads them on an exodus to escape slavery in Egypt, and King David, who will, as a prophet and a religious figure, will unite the Hebrew people, the 6 different tribes of the Hebrew people, and the 2 kingdoms into one nation, Israel. And if we look here, the Star of David, the symbol of Judaism, shows that. If you look, there's 2 triangles, one pointing north, one pointing south, showing 2 kingdoms, and there were 6 tribes. If you look here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Many different religious symbols have a lot of meaning within them. A lot of, it's not just something that was drawn on happenstance. It's trying to tell you a story of key ideas of their beliefs. So these 3 different faiths all can trace their heritage back to this one person. Does that make sense? So for your exit card today, what I'd like for you to do is define in your own words these 3 words. Polytheism, which is, if you recall, belief in more than one God. Monotheism, belief in only one God, like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And prophet, a religious figure who followers of that religion believe have supernatural abilities. Whether or not they had that ability, we don't have factual proof of that. But if I believe somebody had that ability, then that's going to shape my whole worldview, right? And then lastly, we talked about that idea of descendants. In what ways does Abraham have more descendants than there are stars in the sky? And again, that 3 different religions all trace their origin to him. So adherents or followers of 3 different faiths, both living and dead, could all trace their religion and beliefs back to that one figure. Kind of comes to the idea of him having many, many descendants. So that's the end of lesson 5. Oop, still says lesson 1 exit card there. Sorry, folks. Forgot to edit that out. But that's that. Thanks so much. All right. So